Hey guys, we're back out here, finally getting back on Project Fundraiser for a little while. At least going to try and get the engine and transmission in it, see if we can get it running. And then I'll probably start doing some body work and stuff on it, getting it ready for paint, but it might be spring before I paint just because that weather's awful cool. And, you try and do a gloss paint in too cold of weather, it's just going to go flat on you. Especially when you're painting outside because you don't have a booth. Anyway, I've got the transmission sitting here on the bench. I'm gonna pull the drain plug. Not sure if it's even got any fluid in it, but we're gonna pull the drain plug. And I want to separate the case just because somebody's been in this. Clearly, it's got RTV, the red RTV just oozing out the sides. So it's been separated. So I just want to, before I put it in, make sure there's nothing major wrong with it. We'll check out the bearings and stuff in there and replace them if needed. So let's jump in and get started.
Okay, sit still, everybody. Don't go away.
It is Christmas Eve. I hope everyone, by the time you see this, it'll be past Christmas. So I hope everyone has a Merry Christmas. This one is definitely tighter than mine was. I just felt it give there though. Yay! So then, yeah, you just lift that off, set it somewhere. Alright, that's out of the way. We should probably finish taking these bolts out. And then we can move this arm. Let me see if I can get a camera and show you what I'm doing over here. You see, you got the throwout bearing here. You've got to push your rod over. This is hard to do one-handed, but you push that over and it lets you get one side free. And then you should be able to wiggle the other side out. I'm gonna have to set you down to get this off here, but oh, now that we kind of got it back in place, I'll be right back. We'll let that sit for a minute. We're gonna let that sit and soak for a minute, clean off some of this in the front. I'll try and get the camera where you can see what I'm doing a little better, and we'll go from there.
The next day.
Alright guys, in typical me fashion, kind of quit in the middle of what I was doing yesterday. I was separating this transmission. Got far enough to realize I was going to need to order some parts, and got sidetracked and went and worked on something else, which I'll be editing that video tonight. But I wanted to get back on this transmission, finish getting it apart, so I can see if I need to order anything else, and we'll get all those parts coming in. Alright, so we got all the bolts out of that cover. The cover's still on there, but it should come loose as we separate this case. There it goes. Ta-da! Alright. So we got that knocked apart. And we can kind of inspect everything here. I already know I'm going to do a new throw-up bearing on there. And I'll do this front seal, but if the rest of the bearings feel good and tight, I'm not going to bother changing those. We'll just have to play it by ear. Yeah, we'll replace this seal because it's still a little soft. But since we're in here, I'm going to go ahead and put one in. Okay guys, we got this apart. Things you want to look for once you get it apart is you just want to turn it and make sure you don't have any missing teeth, any extremely worn gears. Check your bearings for any play in them. Lift this up out of here. Everything's spins nice, no play, feels good. One thing I have noticed, and I'll see if I can, this C-clip on the end here needs to be replaced. It's very loose and barely hanging on, so we'll get a new one of those. So it looks like I'm going to order one of these C-clips, an input seal, an output seal, and we'll be ready to put this back together. So I'll get those parts ordered. We'll show putting those in. Then hopefully we can get this set in the Samurai and work on getting the engine in. So I'm sure, a few days are going to pass between this and when we're putting it back together, but for you it'll be like that. What's going on, everybody? Last I left you on this video, we were going to order some parts for this transmission. Those finally came in. They actually came in a day or two ago. Got a couple new seals and a new throw-out bearing. And I've also got a bag of, I already had these. Don't know if you can see in the bag, but they're synchronizers. I'm going to replace at least one synchronizer on here, but we're going to check them all. We're supposed to get a bunch of snow this weekend. It's been real cold. It's not too bad today. I mean, we're in the 30s, but it's not super windy, so it's tolerable. But show you putting these synchronizers in. We'll pop some seals in and go ahead and try and get this transmission back together. I've got a lot of stuff piled around Project Fundraiser right now. I've been working on some other projects, so probably won't get it set back in the car in this video, but we'll probably do the transmission and the engine all in one video, getting it put in and maybe even hear it run. I haven't checked the tank on this Samurai, but what I've been underneath is not rusty under there, so I'm assuming it's in good shape. But anyway, let me get you set up and we'll get to work. Alright guys, hopefully this will show up on camera, but these brass rings on here, brass gears, those are the synchronizers for the transmission. And as you can see, they should have a nice gap between the gear and the synchronizer. So if you see that one's got a gap, that one's got a gap, you really got to push it to get it up there. This one, resting right on it. That one's worn out. We need to replace that. Everyone else, it's in good shape. And all those synchronizers do is they start spinning up and get this gear spinning to help match the RPMs. So it makes it easier to get into gear. I'm not the best at explaining stuff, but that's how I'm explaining it. So anyway, we got to get to this synchronizer. So big thing on these transmissions, any transmission, is if you're taking them apart, make sure you're putting them back together or stacking. Make sure you're stacking them so that when you put them back together, you know which direction everything was facing. You're getting it all in the same order and all that good stuff. If I had a puller or something, would be handy. but I don't. So we're just going to try and redneck our way through it. That came out. All right. Well, like I said, try to keep them clean. I'm going to lay my stack right here under the camera. Okay, maybe that was not the wrong way, but to me, that should be that way. Yeah. That gives you the oil chase for your gear. 90% sure that's on there wrong. I'm pulling them off and stacking them exactly how they go. And I wanna look, see how they got a nice gap between the gear there. That's how I want. Looks like we've got bearing here. Set that in there. Little retention ball in there. Hopefully I can pull that out with a little magnet or something. There we go. Get a magnet there to pop it out, put it somewhere safe. Then you can go back to disassembling. I'm going to pull this gear out. And that pulled out that synchro and everything. There's a little ring around that. But you can see nice gap on that. So it's in good shape. I'm just going to stack it there. Got another little retaining ball. And we'll get these out of the way. And then hopefully we can get that to pop out like that. Drop it somewhere where we'll remember it. So, as you can see, before I pull it off, there's no gap between that synchronizer and that gear. So that is a worn out synchro. So we're going to pull that off. Set that down where it'll stay put. Pull that off. Lay this ring to the side. Then I'll get my little bag of them here and find the matching one. Which is going to be one of these two. It sure looks like it. So we're just going to put one on. So when we slide this back on here, it should have a nice gap between it and the gear once it's in place. Nice gap in there. Hopefully you can see that. I know my lighting sucks and I apologize. I'm desperately trying to fix that. This time of year, battling that sun, it's not always easy. So then I'm just going to start picking stuff back up and putting it back on the same way it came off. Let's get the sleeve all the way on first. And our bearing. And we can set it back like this. Find our little ball bearing. And try not to drop it in the floor like I almost just did. Set it back in place. Take your next, this all stayed together, so that was handy. Another gear, which again, get your grooves lined up. Make sure it drops all the way into place. And you've got your last little retaining ball, like that. This should be like so. You want to get your little groove lined up. And whoever put this back together had this flipped out, but it should be that way. That's an oil channel. It's going to keep feeding oil to that gear for you. So you want that in that way. That should be the output shaft. And there's the one we want. And you want to put these in nice and even. Usually I find a socket or something where I can smack it in nice and even. But this one went in pretty easy with just my hand. Anyway, let's see if you can see what I'm. Once you get your new seal pressed, in there, you can take something that's the same diameter, which in this case a 1 1/16 socket. Take your mallet. Just want to make sure it's down in there as far as it's going to go. Alright guys, we ran to the store. I got me some of this Permatex that's the Right Stuff gasket maker. I really like this stuff. Sets up in 1 minute, so you're ready to go. This is the black version. It's supposed to be good oil resistance and all that. So we're going to go ahead and set the main half of the transmission back together. Then we'll stand it on in. I'll put the new seal in the rear section. And we should be about done with this thing. Alright, we got this, the main body I'll put back together in transmission. I've got the rear section here. We're going to go ahead and replace this seal. So, as simple as popping that one out. Grab your new one. Always like to compare it to the old one, make sure we're the same. Yeah, that one was getting hard. It still had a little life left in it, but we were in here, so we're going to do it. And take a rag and just verify that that's clean. And set it in there. Looks like that's not quite going to fit. Oh, let's see if that works. I like to do that just so it goes down in nice and even, and that worked out quite well. Alright, here's the old throwout bearing out of there. It's feeling a little crusty. Here's our new one. Nice and tight. That one's real loose, and you can feel it kind of grinding a little bit. I was going to replace it anyway, but that reassures me it needs it. So what you want to do, first you want to put some nice grease on there for it. Where did I set my grease? There it is. just a good layer, you know, a little thin layer around where the bearing rides. So that's all you gotta do there, just a nice little thin layer. And then take your throwout bearing. You'll see there's movement in this arm. You can go in and out a little bit. You want to start, get this in here. You'll have to kind of cock the bearing a little bit, because you've got a groove here that fits on a little tooth sticking out there, a little stud, to keep it from sliding out. So if you cock this a little bit and push in on your shaft, you should get just enough room. It's hard to do this with my transmission not propped up real well. Once you get it to kind of bite, then you can. There we go. So once it's in there, slides in nice and easy, and it can come off of there, but once you get your clutch and pressure plate and everything, you know, get it up against that, it prevents it from coming out too far. So there it is. Woohoo! So that's all for that. I'm not going to fill it with fluid and everything until I get it under the car. I'm not going to get it under the car today because I don't even have room to get under there. That might do it for this video. Probably not. I'm going to do a little more on this video. But hopefully we got snow coming in tomorrow, but if the weather ain't terrible, this weekend I'm going to go ahead and put the transmission in and try and get the engine set in, get some drive shafts hooked up and everything. We'll be one step closer to getting this Samurai running. Come back and see us.